Thank you for listening to this Podcast One production, available on Apple Podcasts and Podcast One.
There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome. The weekend is here. The time is right. And you've got your two best buddies, Dave and Tim, on the line. This is Beyond the Darkness, the best in paranormal talk radio. We've got a whole new slew of strange stories to share with you, both Supernatural News and ParaShare. And I hope that you guys enjoyed our special replays the last few weeks. I got to tell you, in honoring Stanton Friedman, and it's something that we like to do when somebody passes away that meant a lot to our show and meant a lot to the community, like Lorraine Warren and Stanton Friedman. We like to be able to replay those shows in honor of the gifts that they gave to our show and to our world. So we hope that you're fine with those revisits. And last weekend being a holiday weekend, Tim and I just needed a week to be with our families and enjoy it. It was a very short respite for me between filming and recording and doing everything we're doing. So we put up a couple of our favorite episodes for the weekend, and I hope you dug them as much as we dug putting them back out for you. We've got all brand new episodes coming up for you right now, though. Tomorrow, Vince Wilson, Tim, is going to join us. We're going to take a look at the weird world history with Vince Wilson. And we've met Vince at a couple of conferences throughout the years. I just had a chance to shoot with him for the TV program I'm a part of. Mm-hmm. And he sat down and was regaling us with strange historical tidbits. And, he'd tell these stories, and they sounded so ludicrous that the minute he left, we were all on our phones Googling these stories because there was no way they could be true. And to our astonishment, Tim, every story was true.
Weird.
So he's going to come on and share them with listeners tomorrow, and we may do he also has some great info on Edgar Allan Poe and his strange life and mysterious death. We may get to that, or we may have him come back in the future and do a full Poe show with us. Poe show, Tim.
Poe show.
We might do the whole Poe show in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But today we have Supernatural News and ParaShare. Mr. Dennis at the Supernatural News desk. Where shall we begin this week's journey into the unusual?
We're going to Germany, Dave.
Dun, 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 dun.
Not quite. You're close. So, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. You're just off by a tad. Not much.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
What's going on in Germany?
Well, Dave,
the Deutschland, if you don't, the motherland, Tim.
Well, maybe for you, but not for me. Yeah. We all need a little help sometimes with our driving. Sometimes, it just so happens that this German driver had a little bit more help than others to save him from a speeding fine. It just so happens it came from above. And I'm not talking about like a bird or a plane or even Superman. I'm talking about the Holy Spirit, Dave.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The Holy Spirit intervened in a man's life to help him get out of a speeding ticket?
I know it sounds a little holy roller, Dave, but yeah, the Holy Spirit helped with a speeding fine. Yeah, I know it sounds a little ludicrous. I know, but a speeding driver in Germany was saved from a 93-pound fine. Actually, it was 105 Is it Deutschmarks? Is that what they're using now these days over there in
Yeah,
Germany?
Sure. Why not?
When a snow white dove interceded on his behalf. That sounds like an old country song. On the wings
or
of
Stevie Nicks,
snow white dove. The driver was caught on speed cameras, but his identity was hidden by the bird's wings spread in flight. You heard me right. The bird's wings spread in flight hid that poor driver who was just chucking along. A lighthearted police statement suggested that perhaps it was no coincidence the Holy Spirit intervened, a reference to the dove as a symbol of that aspect of God and Christianity. We have understood the sign and leave the speeder in peace this time, was the statement by the police. But the officials in Viersen, near Germany's western border, added, "We hope that the protected speeder likewise understands this hint from above and drives appropriately in the future." The driver was traveling at 54 kilometers an hour, or 34 miles an hour, on a stretch of road with a 30 kilometer an hour speed limit.
So let's get this right. They let the speeder go. It's not like he was going 95 in a 60. He was going 34 in a 30.
Oh, he's going 54 in a 30 kilometer. I don't know.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, so he was doing 24 kilometers over. Yeah. But since only the car and not the driver could be identified, he was probably spared the 105 Deutschmark fine, thanks to the feathered guardian angel with seemingly carefully spread wings.
Just like the white-winged dove sings a song, sounds like she's singing.
I'm glad I have this on tape. You just sang some Stevie Nicks.
Yeah, but it's not Fleetwood Mac, so I'm okay with it.
Is it though, Dave?
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Are you sure that's
just like a white-winged dove? And actually, I'm singing, I think, my grunge version of it, Tim, which makes the song much cooler.
Ah, I see. But is it just Stevie Nicks, Dave? Isn't that... Is it?
Yeah, it is. It's just Stevie Nicks.
But isn't
from her single, Edge of 17, I believe it was.
Okay. But isn't there another Fleetwood Mac member on that album? So isn't it technically...
It doesn't matter, Tim. The album's not Fleetwood Mac. It's Stevie goddamn Nicks, Tim.
So isn't that technically half of Fleetwood Mac right there on that album, Dave?
There's 5 members. One lead singer and one drummer does not a band make, Tim.
And doesn't she perform that single on tour with Fleetwood Mac, Dave?
Boy, we're getting a lot of static all of a sudden, Tim.
The Viersen police added that the dove should also be fined for moving so fast in the restricted zone. You heard me right. I could repeat that if you'd like.
Things move faster in my restricted zone.
Mm-hmm. However, since we do not know where it has to be on time for the upcoming Christian holy day of Pentecost, we will allow mercy over justice here too. What were they going to do? Shoot the dove?
You're not going so fast. If it weren't a white dove, they might have done.
Oh my gosh! What if it were a pigeon? They would have opened fire.
Yeah, get that pigeon. Get that pigeon. That is not a Fleetwood Mac or Stevie Nicks song, so don't even start with me.
All right, I won't then. I'll leave you be this time.
Is that all you got for me on that one?
That's all I got on that one, yeah.
As long as we're talking about weird driving issues, how about this? Cops bust a ghost that's been scaring drivers, Tim. We're going to go all the way to the Indonesian city where this is taking place. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Authorities in an Indonesian city became ghostbusters late Sunday morning when they caught a troublemaking teenager who had been dressing up as a spirit, scaring motorists. The strangeness reportedly began in the community of Pemalang. Pemalang, Tim. Pemalang. That sounds like a country song. A few days earlier, then several concerned residents called the police after spotting an eerie entity on the side of the road. Specifically, they said the apparition was a rather notorious type of spirit in Indonesian culture known as the pocong, or wrapped ghost, because the being appears shrouded in a burial cloth. After receiving a number of reports about a peculiar pocong sighting, Tim, police in the Pemalang set out about trying to get to the bottom of the weird calls. Eventually, after a few days of looking, cops came upon the ghost during a patrol of the city and, remarkably, when the spirit was initially confronted by the officers, it attempted to scare them away. I don't know if I could be frightened of what looks like just a giant bag of dirty laundry bouncing along on the side of the road.
No, me neither. No.
The apparition failed to frighten the police as they quickly approached the oddity and discovered that it was, in fact, I know it's hard to believe, Tim, a teenage boy dressed in a pecan costume. Since the suspect is a minor, he managed to avoid being arrested for his activities. Two people got off on technicalities, Tim. But he did receive a reprimand from the police, who noted that he could have caused a shock driver to crash their car. For his part, the faux ghost expressed remorse for his actions and promised not to reprise the stunt. The stern lecture he got from police was a proverbial slap on the wrist compared to a teen in Malaysia that pulled the exact same prank last year and was forced by cops to perform as the ghost, which infamously hops up and down due to being tightly wrapped in a burial shroud on the side of the road. So in Malaysia, they don't play that game, Tim.
No, they don't.
You dress up like the pecan, you're going to jump like the pecan, son.
Yeah.
You got to walk the walk, talk the talk, and hop along the pecan highway.
Oh, my favorite game is?
What?
Donkey Pecan.
Oh, yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah, yeah.
Unlike your joke, that was a good one. All right, where are we off to next, Tim?
Wow.
I get you for the whole Stevie Nicks thing.
Well, yeah. We go to out there yonder in the ocean, evidently, Dave. Navy pilots have spotted some UFOs flying at hypersonic speeds, this according to a report. Some U.S. Navy pilots reported spotting UFOs while training over the East Coast in 2014 and 2015. They said in a recent New York Times report, the pilots told the paper they saw strange objects. Evidently, they said it in French, Dave.
So continental.
Yes, they did.
Oh, they saw some strange objects in the sky.
Well, I had nothing but fruit and crepes for breakfast. They saw strange objects with no visible engine or infrared exhaust plumes, reaching at least 30,000 feet and flying at hypersonic speeds almost daily while training off the aircraft carrier Theodore Roosevelt. These things would be out there all day, said Lieutenant Ryan Graves, an FA-18 Super Hornet pilot who has been with the Navy for 10 years and who said he reported the sightings to the Pentagon and Congress. Keeping an aircraft in the air requires a significant amount of energy. With the speeds we observed, 12 hours in the air is 11 hours longer than we'd expect. The unidentified flying objects were seen performing maneuvers that were beyond the physical limits of a human crew, like stopping rapidly, turning instantly, or immediately accelerating at hypersonic speeds, according to the pilots. The sightings were reported to the Pentagon's shadowy Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, which, as the Post exclusively reported earlier this month, confirmed it still investigates claimed sightings of alien spacecraft. In late 2014, a Super Hornet pilot said he almost hit one of the objects, which he said looked like a sphere encased in a cube, and an official mishap report was filed. Another pilot, Lieutenant Danny Acoyne, said he could identify a flying object on his radar, missile system, and infrared camera, but couldn't actually see it in his helmet camera. I knew I had it. I knew it was not a false hit, Acoyne said, but still, I could not pick it up visually. A minute-long video included in the article appears to show two encounters with the having one of those days.
What?
Enigmatic phenomena. Say that
Nice.
10 times. Yeah. In one of his clips, or one of the clips, pilots appear confused by what they're seeing on their radar screens. Look at that thing. It's rotating, one of them said. At first, the pilots interviewed in the report thought the objects were part of a top-secret drone program, but after the near collision, they changed their minds, reasoning that government officials knew there were fighter pilots in the area and would not send drones to get in the way. Navy spokesman Joseph Gradisher said it's unclear what caused the sightings detailed in the article. The Times report comes after the Navy in April sent out a new classified guidance for how to report the unexplained aerial phenomenon. There were a number of different reports, Gradisher said. Some cases could have been commercial drones, he added. But in other cases, we don't know what's doing this or who's doing this. We don't have enough data to track this, so the intent of the message to the fleet is to provide updated guidance on reporting procedures for suspected intrusions into our airspace. Neither Graves or the other pilots nor the Department of Defense would speculate on what the objects were. We're here to do a job with excellence, not make up myths, one pilot said.
Not make up myths. Interesting.
Yeah.
That is weird. So many different pilots are seeing this. I do want to say that I went on record at the beginning of the year saying that I believe something major was going to happen that's going to lead people out of the darkness on UFOs. And as more and more of these stories are coming forward, Tim, I think I might be onto something. Mm-hmm. Hey, Tim.
Yeah.
A woman has told how she hid under a tree because she was convinced she saw a UFO flying over her Flitwick.
Her what?
Her Flitwick, Tim.
I see. Her Flitwick, you say?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, you don't want to. Trust me. If there's one thing you don't want to see, it's a UFO hovering over your Flitwick.
Never do. Yeah.
Nope. Yeah. Kelly Mars. Mares or Mars, either one. Kelly Mares, let's go with M-A-I-R-S. Kelly Mares managed to snap photos of the strange object hovering over her Flitwick, Tim, which shot out a lightning bolt type light as it moved. I'm guessing from looking at the photograph, it was just that she might have been nervously ducking under the tree and moving the camera, because it just looks like that camera blur.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I don't mean to poo-poo, Tim.
No,
especially not so close to a woman's Flitwick.
Well, but you'd never do. That's how you transmit germs.
Some people said it could be a drone, but my dad is really into drones, and they don't look like this. When she says he's into drones, Tim, he's into drones. I've never seen anything like it before. It was really high in the sky, and the more I looked at it, the weirder it got. Kelly was talking to her friend in Lipscomb Drive. Flitwick and Lipscomb, huh? When she noticed the object overhead, forks of light were coming off it, and it was making a machine-type noise. Forking lights by her Flitwick, Tim. Think about it. As it came closer to me, I got so scared that I hid under a tree. But I managed to carry on taking photos. Kelly took the photos on April 14th at around 10 p.m., but until now she has been too scared to show them in case people thought she was crazy. But the more I think about it, the more I'm convinced it could be a UFO. I wonder what other people think. I think you should protect your Flitwick at all times, Tim.
Absolutely. It's very sensitive.
Especially UFOs. Mm-hmm. So that's the end of that story. What have you got next for me?
Well, we move on to a story about the Black Monk of Pontefract. You got to get that last one out. That Pontefract.
What is it?
The Black Monk of Pontefract.
Okay, what's going on?
It's hard for me to form that last. I'm just saying, it might spit out my gum. A chilling picture of a child ghost outside a notorious haunted home to the Black Monk of Pontefract. I feel like I'm going to spit out my teeth. Ghost hunters claim to have captured a chilling picture of a child ghoul outside of one of the most haunted homes in Britain. 49-year-old Jason Whitnell says he saw the specter outside 30 East Drive in Pontefract, West Yorks, which is dubbed the home of the Black Monk. The ghost hunter and his team were taking routine pictures of the house, which they claim to have spotted the terrifying figure of a child looking back. Jason from Barnet, North London, believes this is definitive proof of a new ghost which is now haunting the home. The home first hit the headlines in the 1960s as the site of one of Britain's most notorious alleged hauntings. Jason said, "We always knew there was more to this house, and history would have you believe. When we arrived, we set up our equipment and split into two teams to try to increase the chance of obtaining some evidence. For the best part of the evening, the house seemed very quiet, and after 5 or so hours of investigations, we rested. It was just after 3 a.m. that we had a cup of tea and decided to get an hour of sleep." Who sleeps at an investigation?
Especially after drinking tea.
They're the laziest ghost hunters ever. I'm just saying.
What say you? We've had our tea and crumpets. Let us take a nap and partake of the slumber.
It's 3 a.m. and it's the witching hour. What say you we have tea and a nap?
Yes, quite.
All four of us settled down in the lounge. 2 fell asleep pretty much from the off, but myself and another just couldn't settle.
Just give me sound effects to help the story.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We went outside and they sound like the Three Stooges are having a nap. We went outside and stepped away from the house to take pictures of it. You can see the figure of what looks like a child standing there looking directly at us. Probably the kid's amazed as you're taking a nap at 3 a.m. It was a female figure staring our way. We looked at the front of this house many times and have scoured it from top to bottom to confirm there's no mistakes. You simply can't unsee it once you've seen it. Decades before the Enfield haunting crept into the nightmares of adults and children across the country, number 30 East Drive became famous for being linked to a notorious ghost. Gene and Joe Pritchard moved into the unassuming house with their son Philip, 15, and 12-year-old daughter Diane in 1966. But the same year, the family said they became disturbed by paranormal activity happening in their home. The terrified family said water pools formed, lights turned off and on again, furniture overturned, pictures were slashed, objects levitated or disappeared, foul smells traveled through the house, and heavy breathing sounds were heard. Paranormal investigator Tom Cuniff spent many years researching the strange case and discovered that the town's gallows had been situated directly across the street. He pinpointed further to the Black Monk, a monk who was hung for the rape and murder of a young girl. The murdered girl would have been a similar age to Diane, who appeared to be the focus of the spirit's attention. Cuniff believes that the entity haunting the family was the Black Monk himself.
Here's a little ditty about the Black Monk and Diane.
No.
No, they roll off the tongue, does it?
No, it doesn't. No.
You know what does roll off the tongue?
What's that?
The fact that every car comes with its share of stories. That ding in your bumper when you nervously picked up a first date, the luxury package you got after a big promotion, or the mileage you saved by riding your bike all summer. While you can't put a price tag on your stories, now with TrueCar, you can at least find out what your car's worth when it's time to sell or trade it in. Just go to TrueCar. Simply enter your license plate number and watch how your car's details pop up. Then answer a few questions. Navigation and moonroof? Watch as they bump up your value. High mileage? You already knew it was going to cost you, but now you know how much it dings your wallet so you can plan ahead. Once you're finished, you'll get a true cash offer sent in minutes, which you can take to a local certified dealer to cash out or trade in. So, when you're ready to experience a better way to sell or trade in your car, check out TrueCar today. True cash offer not available in all areas. All right, Tim, where are we off to next?
We're taking off to the Alien Highway, Dave, a brand new show on Travel Channel, which I'm really excited about. I don't know if you've seen the little hints online on social media, but not only is Chuck Zukowski involved with it, but our old friend Heather Taddy is involved as well. It's looking pretty good. Yeah.
So Heather Taddy's back on TV, and so is Katrina Weidman.
Yeah. Yes,
Life
indeed.
is good.
Life
Plus
is good.
a reboot of Paranormal State coming back to A&E. So
there you go.
Everything comes full circle.
It does. Chuck Zukowski has been following the Alien Highway for over 3 decades. Now he's taking his expertise and his team on the road for his new Travel Channel series. Travel Channel embarks on Alien Highway with Chuck Zukowski, a former law enforcement officer in Colorado turned UFO paranormal investigator. The skill set that he acquired while being on the job serve him well as he delves into fringe topics with just the right amount of skepticism. At present, Zukowski is the Mutual UFO Network Deputy Director of Mutilation Investigations. For years, he studied cattle and horse mutilations in Colorado, as well as other parts of the country. His research into this phenomenon yielded an interesting concept, which is known as the Paranormal Highway of America theory. This came after Zukowski began noticing that most mutilations and UFO sightings occur on the 37th parallel, also known as the UFO Highway. These hotspots can be found on the borders of Utah and Arizona, Colorado and New Mexico, as well as Kansas and Oklahoma. Just exactly what do you find along this particular latitude? Well, Area 51 and the rumored Dulce, New Mexico underground base are just some of the locations on this stretch of road. Zukowski's theory was highlighted on the Science Channel series The Unexplained Files in 2014. Now, according to the press release from the Travel Channel, which is fast becoming the home of paranormal television, Zukowski and his team will be embarking on a new adventure for the network. Alien Highway is set to premiere on June 12th at 10 p.m. Joining Chuck on his quest to uncover proof that UFOs exist and are frequently found along the highway's various locations are his son Daniel and Heather Taddy. Fans of A&E's Paranormal State will definitely remember Heather as the documentarian for the group. She will be performing that same function for Zukowski on Alien Highway. Chuck's son Daniel also has a background in law enforcement as well as the military. He has assisted his father before on investigations, and he will be able to help identify different types of technology that our armed forces currently possess. The first episode of Alien Highway has the team tackling the famous Skinwalker Ranch in the hunt for the Skinwalker, what Native Americans believe to be a malevolent witch who can turn into various animals at will may turn out to be alien in nature. You can tune into Travel Channel's new series starting Wednesday, June 12th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So there you go.
Well, as long as we're in Hollyweird, the CW's new Nancy Drew TV series is about to launch. Basically Riverdale, but with way more ghosts, Tim, which I knew was your big problem with Riverdale. It was great, and boy, is Archie dreamy, but man, this show needs a ghost or two.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Well, everyone's favorite amateur sleuth is back, and this time she's fighting ghosts, Tim. The CW dropped its first trailer for the upcoming Nancy Drew series, revealing a dark, Riverdale-like take on the beloved children detective books. Kennedy McMahon stars as Nancy, a part-time waitress hell-bent on solving mysteries, including the mystifying death of a well-to-do patron outside her diner. At first, Nancy suspects the husband. I mean, come on. It's always the husband, Tim. Always the husband. But as the paranormal begins to reveal itself, Nancy turns her sights towards the legend of a ghostly figure, long believed to haunt the town. Gritty, campy, and with neon signs aplenty, Nancy Drew looks like the perfect next obsession for the Riverdale chilling adventures of Sabrina crowd. Only time will tell if the new arrival is a cheap knockoff or a totally killer new beginning. Nancy Drew premieres on the CW this fall. And I got to tell you, I just watched the trailer for it. It actually looks really good. Plus, yeah. Nancy Drew's adorable. Well, she's a redhead adorable. She's a ginge, Tim. A ginge.
A ginge, you say?
Uh-huh. A ginge.
Huh.
And she's adorbs, Tim. She's an adorbs ginge.
Is that the PC term you're using there? The adorbs ginge?
Yep, that's right. It certainly is. All right, where are we off to next?
Well, a mystery human shadow appears in a couple's photo of an abandoned Spanish building despite nobody standing in the right place to cast a shadow. Dave, it's a shadow mystery, if you will, in North Spain. Interesting, I say. There's something disturbing about this photo of an abandoned building because the human shadow in the foreground doesn't belong to anybody who was there. The picture was taken in the abandoned village of Spain in... Oh, forgive me, my Spanish is a little rusty. In Hormacedo, Castile, and Leon, Spain. There you go.
Hormacedo, Castile, you say.
Hormacedo, Castile, and Leon, Spain. I didn't say Hormacedo. Hormacedo.
Didn't you?
No, I didn't.
Didn't you?
No, I didn't.
I think you sounded like Fleetwood Mac saying it, too.
No,
he didn't. I don't even know what that means.
I don't know either.
All right, so go on.
By a 36-year-old photographer who was visiting with her boyfriend. Neither of them were in a position to cast the shadow, they claim, and with the village being abandoned since 1959, nobody knows who it was. The photographer, who was asked not to be named, shared the picture with her niece, Micah. She said she actually felt a really weird change in temperature when she got there, which is true because it was getting really cold really fast, said Micah. But it didn't really occur to anyone that it was something paranormal. Also, she said she heard some things. She heard things. I hear things. Mm-hmm. Like someone running really fast between the bushes or close by. When the photo was taken, Micah's aunt was operating the camera, while her aunt's boyfriend was to the side holding a flashlight. They're therefore convinced that they couldn't have cast the shadow themselves, yet there it is in the photo, the ghostly outline of a person. We have no idea what the shadow is. My aunt thinks it may not even be a shadow at all, said Micah. The reason to believe it's not a normal human shadow is because it doesn't really seem to be the way a shadow forms. For example, on the building, the shadow should be larger than on the bushes. That's what she said. Sorry. Which are closer. Also, if there was something standing in the light, it should have been on the photo, too. 20-year-old Micah has since visited the site with her aunt, and though they were unable to recreate the photo, the old church left them spooked yet again. During the second visit, the aunt's boyfriend experienced a freezing sensation before returning home with cuts on his chest and back, which he couldn't explain. My aunt found the photo unsettling, but she wasn't scared because she didn't really believe in this sort of stuff, said Micah. But I know that she was really shocked and scared when she saw the cuts on his chest and back. Skeptics have suggested to Micah that perhaps the visiting couple didn't remember where they were standing, and so it was one of their shadows after all. But Micah has yet to be won over. I'm open to logical explanations about the photo, but I didn't really find one yet, she said. Hormacedo is the site of a human settlement as far back as the Iron Age, but its last two residents moved away in January of 1959, and afterwards the ruins were looted. There you go.
Well, as long as we're talking about ruins, Tim, I've got the ruins as well.
Oh, no. You should probably take
the Boleskine House ruins, Tim.
Oh, I was going to say you should probably take something for that if you've...
No. The former Highland home of occultist Aleister Crowley and Led Zeppelin founder has finally been sold. The former Highland home of occultist Aleister Crowley that was largely destroyed by a fire 4 years ago has been sold. The new owners of Boleskine House near Loch Ness will be hoping for a new peaceful chapter in the property story. With it understood, the house is to become home to a charitable foundation and opened to the public. I'm looking at it. There's not much left but a couple of walls. So how are you opening it to the public? It's an open Airbnb, Tim?
I guess so.
Yeah, those who have bought the property have not been named, but they plan to fully restore the house where Crowley centered his black magic investigations after he bought it, age 25, in 1899. It was later bought by Led Zeppelin founder and guitarist Jimmy Page in the 70s, with the rock god owning the most notorious home in the Highlands for around 20 years. A blaze in 2015 caused extensive damage to the Boleskine House, with the fragile building now a danger to the public. It has long drawn those curious in the occult, but the new owners have urged people to stay away until the house is fully repaired and restored to a safe state. Paranormal investigators, Highland Paranormal, carried out a recent survey at the property, which did not pick up any supernatural activity, and was contacted by the new owners. Highland Ghosts said on its social media channel, following on from our investigation, we are delighted to have been contacted by the new owners of the property who have kindly shared their vision with us for restoring the property and grounds to their original state, which also creates a non-profitable charitable trust so that the public in general will be able to enjoy the house and grounds for generations to come. Highland Paranormal will be supporting this project moving forward, and we would like to wish the new owners all the best with this amazing project to restore a key part of the area's heritage. Meanwhile, the owners have asked that due to the current dangerous state of the house, that the public in general stays the hell away from the building and grounds until construction work has been completed and the house has been opened to the public. A spokesman for the Highland Ghosts said it could not comment further on the plans for the building. Crowley, who was just age 25, bought the Boleskine in 1899 after looking for the right location to carry out a series of rituals from the Book of Abramelin. Abramelin? Abramelin, Abramelin, Tim. The Book of Abramelin?
Sure.
It was a text central to Crowley's new religion. I don't want to get in trouble because I'm butchering all these. Thelema? 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 Thelema. Thelma and Louisa.
Yes, Thelma and Louisa.
Yeah, it was text central to Crowley's new religion, Thelema, which he believed would help make him contact with his holy guardian angel. He reportedly required a house in a more or less secluded situation with a door that opened to the north from where the oratory could be delivered. From there, Crowley planned to banish the demons once they had been summoned to a terrace which would be covered in fine river dust. It is a full process that could take up to 6 months. Of his experiments in the Highlands, Crowley, who styled himself Laird of the Boleskine and Abertarf wrote, "The demons and evil forces have congregated round me so thickly that they were shutting off the light. It was a comforting situation. There could be no more doubt of the efficiency of the operation. It is said that the consequences of Crowley's time at Boleskine were long felt, with several personal tragedies associated with the house. One employee of the estate attempted to kill his wife and children. It was claimed in Crowley's diary his lodge keeper, Hugh Gilly, suddenly lost 2 of his children in sudden unexplained circumstances. A housemaid is said to have gone mad with a local butcher cutting off his hand while dealing with Crowley's order. In 1960, the new owner of the property, Major Edward Grant, killed himself with a shotgun in the bedroom that had been used by Crowley for many of his satanic rituals. While unconfirmed tales about Boleskine's past keep re-energizing themselves, the property has enjoyed a quieter period, with the Dutch family latterly using it as a holiday home. They sold up after the fire and were reportedly utterly devastated that their home was destroyed." Wah, wah. Are people going to want to go visit a reproduction of Aleister Crowley's house?
You know, there are, I think, some people that are so into Crowley that they would, yeah. I think so.
Or Jimmy Page, I guess.
Yeah, and there are definitely Zeppelin fans that are that into it that they would want to see what exactly Page was living in. I think so.
That's all I got for you, Tim. Where are we off to next?
Should we take a break or should we continue on?
You know, you can't go on. You can't read one more, Tim. You need a break. You need to rest your weary little head, fella. You need a sucker, maybe a lollipop. You want Daddy to go get you an ice cream sundae?
I've got 2 stories left.
Oh, really? I've still got a whole bunch. Yeah. I'll share some of those with you, Tim. I'll give you 1 or 2 of my stories so that you got them, if you want them.
Oh, all right, then.
Yeah. Okay. But where are we going next?
Well, we're going back to Hollywood, Dave, where the Ghostbusters prequel, 1969, is underway. This according to writer Dan Aykroyd. As we know, the new Ghostbusters sequel is going to hit the cinema on July 10th of 2020. However, what we didn't realize until today is that Dan Aykroyd has written Ghostbusters prequel series. Ivan Reitman, director of the original Ghostbusters, teamed up with co-writer and co-producer Dan Aykroyd in the past. When we got an official announcement of Ghostbusters Answer the Call, they started a production company called Ghost Corps. The purpose of this company is to handle different projects related to paranormal investigation. We heard about many projects later, but none of them hit the cinema. Back when Ghostbusters Answer the Call was first announced, it was revealed that the original Ghostbusters director, Ivan Reitman, and co-writer, co-producer, and star Dan Aykroyd were teaming up to start a production company called Ghost Corps that would focus on developing projects with different takes on the Paranormal Investigator franchise. Also, while we've heard a handful of possible projects in the years since, none of them have gotten off the ground. As far as Ghostbusters sequel is concerned, its story will start a few decades after the events of the 2 movies in the original franchise. Jason Reitman is the director of an upcoming Ghost film. We have to see how the characters will look in the future. Dan Aykroyd is working on a Ghostbusters prequel, which will take us to the teenage years of the film's characters, Peter Venkman, Egon Spengler, and Ray Stantz. Aykroyd revealed information about the prequel while he was on a promotional tour of his Crystal Head vodka in Canada. He was told that the prequel would go back to the earlier years of Ghostbusters. He said, "I've written Ghostbusters High, where they met in New Jersey in 1969, and we're looking to do that as probably a glorified feature or pilot within the next maybe 5 years. Moreover, it would lead to a television project, and I thought of him immediately for that." It seems that Aykroyd has an intention to hand over prequel projects to Jason Reitman as soon as he completes a new Ghostbusters sequel. It's on Reitman's desk, but that's years away from the current project. However, it's a neat idea for a prequel. Imagine casting the 3 characters as teenagers. The idea of bringing teenagers to prequel is not new. Finding the characters which showcase the personalities of original Ghostbusters movie characters is a tricky task, however. The story of the prequel is not final at this moment. In any case, Aykroyd said, We have at least one or two other concepts for the Ghostbusters, and then we'll look at doing the prequel, which will be a perfect button on all we've done up to that point. So there you go.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens with the sequel and possible prequels to follow. I'd like to see that.
It'd be an interesting take, that's for sure.
Hey, Tim.
Yep.
I can almost taste my Twinkies.
No, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
But
because Riverside police are warning dog owners about the danger of zombie raccoons. Yeah, you heard that right, Tim. We're going to Chicago. We're not going to Indonesia, Malaysia, India, Pakistan, Australian outback, Tim. We're not going to some far-flung corner of the world where this is an impossibility or improbability. We're going right to Chicago, Tim. Police in West Suburban Riverside are warning dog owners to be on the lookout for zombie raccoons, which have been infected with a strange canine distemper virus and could pose a danger to pets. Riverside police said they have responded to an increased number of cases of zombie virus in the raccoons. Raccoons carrying the distemper virus are often described as zombies because of the abnormal behavior caused by the neurological effects of the disease, such as extremely slow movement, showing a lack of fear of humans, and walking around in the daytime, even though raccoons are nocturnal, Tim. Distemper is extremely contagious, Tim, and can cause digestive problems, respiratory issues, seizures, and the flavor for human flesh, Tim. Maybe that part wasn't a part of the story, but anyway, I digress. The virus can't be transmitted to humans yet, but any contact with raccoons can be dangerous for dogs, who can then spread it to humans, Tim. With that gentle lick of their tongue, suddenly you're a zombie. According to the American Veterinarian Medical Association, dogs most often are infected through sneezing or coughing from an infected animal. It can also be transmitted by shared food and water bowls, toys, and other equipment. Infected dogs can shed the virus for months, and infected female dogs can pass the virus to their puppies. Symptoms in dogs include a watery, pus-like discharge from their eyes, fever, nasal discharge, coughing, lethargy, reduced appetite, and vomiting. Sounds like a weekend at college to me. As neurological effects worsen, infected dogs can also develop circling behavior, head tilt, muscle twitches, convulsions, jaw-chewing movements, salivation, seizures, and partial or complete paralysis. The virus may also cause the foot pads to thicken and harden. Riverside police urge dog owners to get their pets vaccinated to protect them from this zombie distemper and to keep a close eye on them while outside to avoid contact with wild animals, even in fenced-in yards, Tim. It seems every year around this time we get a rise in calls about raccoons acting oddly, and we respond to the calls about raccoons that may be in danger to the public. Our policy allows us to put down the animals that are suffering or pose a threat to public safety, Riverside Police Chief Tom Weitzel said in a statement. Riverside Police said officers will euthanize infected wild animals and public works crews will dispose of the carcasses when necessary. Probably by throwing them into your water reservoir, Tim, which you will then drink, and you will become infected with the zombie apocalypse virus. I'm just saying, Tim.
Can't be.
I can taste the Twinkies now.
To humans, Dave. Just said that in the article.
At this point, Tim said that in the article too, Tim. If that's really your name, Tim.
It is, Dave. Yeah, that is my name.
I know. I've seen the birth certificate. Yeah. Timothy David Dennis. You
wow,
are in trouble, sir.
Are you trying to set me up for identity theft? Is that what you're doing?
Oh, no, Timothy Daniel Damus. Not at all.
Yeah.
Huh? See? People will totally forget that I said your real name.
Yeah.
At least I didn't tell them the number 612.
Hey.
What? I'm just saying I didn't do that, Tim. Or I could have given your address 314.
Hey.
I'm just saying that would have been worse. Could you imagine if I gave your full name and your phone number and address and your social 372? What? What?
What is
I'm
wrong
saying that
with you
could have made
today?
it worse, Tim, and I didn't do it. You never give me credit for anything.
Man.
Are you going to read a story, or are you just going to belittle me? Or trying to ruin your credit score?
You are on a roll today.
I see.
We go to a local park where UFOs are waiting to take Dave away.
What?
You got a what?
What?
You got a pee? Is that what you said?
Okay.
Is that what you said?
You're taking me to the park, Tim.
Did you
I was going to get to romp with my other friends as we try to avoid zombie raccoons.
You just yell out at random, I gotta pee?
Because I want to be at the park, Tim. Okay. Isn't that what you do at parks? I don't want to live in a world where a man can't just whip it out and pee in a park, Tim.
No, I don't piss at random. That's a sign of dementia, I think, is just whipping it out at random at local establishments.
Well, I think you got to put a label on it, Tim. Then I guess I'm a dementia man.
Dementia Man. That's the name of my new album. We go to a local park in Sheffield, Massachusetts, where
not local at all. You bonehead. We live in Minnesota. Why do you got to start off with a lie right away?
That's not a lie. It's a local park in Sheffield, Massachusetts.
It's not local park to us. We're in Minnesota.
It's in Sheffield, Mass. It's local to Sheffield, Massachusetts.
All right.
It's dedicated to an alleged UFO sighting. Really? It was a big deal for the tiny town of Sheffield, Massachusetts, when hundreds of people reported something unusual in the sky. Could it be alien visitors? A half-century...
Or could it be Dave whipping it out to take a pee in the park, Tim?
Could be. That's an alien visitor to the people in Sheffield, Massachusetts. Not a lot going on in that town, I'm just saying. A half-century later, people are still talking about it. Did you whip it out a half-century ago in Sheffield, Massachusetts? You're getting your diaper changed?
If I did, the legend would still continue, Tim.
Okay, just wondering. Evidently, people are still talking about it, Dave. The idea of flying saucers first landed in the 1940s and has invaded popular culture ever since. There's been countless reported sightings, but only one has made it into the state historical records. Not the hysterical records, but historical records. I think there's something out there, I believe, said Kathy Siliker. Something happened here, and it's not something you can make up, said Judge Kevin Titus. Labor Day 1969, that's where we go to. So we're coming out of that bridge, explained Tom Reed. The then 9-year-old was in the back seat of his mom's station wagon when the family saw a glowing orb, then hovering 3 stories above a cornfield. It was massive. It was like metallic, Reed said. I know how crazy it sounds, but I sat there. I saw it myself. He describes it as a giant turtle shell with its head poking out. Just saying. His mom pulled off into a clearing, and then came a period of time no one can account for. You know, we have weird memories of that night, and when we came to, if you will, my mother and grandmother were reversed in the car, and the car was off, said Reed. 50 years later, Reed remains embedded in the paranormal world, sharing his story on TV shows like Ancient Aliens and building up the park dedicated to his encounter. A 5,000 cement marker memorializes the off-world incident as both historically significant and true. It's complete with the signature of Governor Charlie Baker. The formal recognition came from the Great Barrington Historical Society in 2015. It was a decision then Director Debbie Opperman later called a mistake and a professional embarrassment. Today the society is run by Robert Kroll. Something happened which is true and remarkable. Then something happened because so many people reported it as something happening. But what it is, we don't know, said Kroll. It wasn't until the morning after the alleged encounter when the Reed family realized they weren't alone. WSBS radio got panic calls. People called saying, "My God, something is going on here. What you think happened?" said Judge Kevin Titus. He signed and sealed the records by the governor and the Historical Society, declaring them uncontested lawful documents, but the alleged encounter and the park itself are not without controversy. The town of Sheffield last year ordered the massive marker be moved because of its proximity to a public pathway. Reed says the land belongs to a farmer who rents it from. The town has gone quiet on the dispute, but skeptics remain. Why'd they bring him back if he was abducted 50 years ago? One local jokingly asked. I don't think he was actually abducted. Others say Reed's unwavering story rings true. The park is gaining support. There have been donations of stone, weeping willow trees, solar lights, and benches. One of them even sponsored by Dean Haglund, who played Ringo in The X-Files. This is kind of like for anybody that has thought they had seen something or did see something. This is for all of them, said Kathy Siliker. Reed says believing in aliens can leave you feeling alienated, but not at this judgment park. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're probably criticized, and now they've got a spot that says, look, you know, we've never wavered. We stuck together, and as a community, we made history, he said. There you go.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So, since we're talking about houses that were up for sale as well, we talked about Aleister Crowley and Jimmy Page's former house that was finally bought. The Los Feliz murder mansion has been listed for $3.5 million, Tim.
Really?
The Los Feliz, California, the infamous Los Feliz murder mansion is back on the real estate market. The owner of the property, attorney Lisa Bloom, is asking $3.5 million in cash or hard money for the property. What's the difference between cash or hard money, Tim? Isn't that the same thing?
Well, no, Dave. Cash is more of a liquid asset. Hard money is when you pet it so much that it goes stiff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mansion is located at 2475 Glendower Place and gained notoriety for the murder-suicide that occurred back in 1959. The Spanish-style mansion is perched atop a hill with a vast view of Los Angeles. The neighborhood is home to many celebrities and Hollywood elites. The 5,050-square-foot home contains 5 bedrooms and 3.5 bathrooms. The mansion, which was built back in 1925, features a resplendent entrance that leads into a step-down living room overlooking the scenery. The mansion has its own ballroom located on the 3rd floor, a kitchen designed for entertaining, a formal dining area, and its own library study. The mansion's garage can hold up to 3 cars at a street level, plus an additional 2-car garage is located at the end of the driveway. The house is undergoing a remodel, and the ideal buyer would be someone with a vision for the Los Feliz mansion. The property's interior has been stripped to the studs, and most of the floors have been removed. This property does not qualify for financing, but seller financing might be available. In 1959, the owner at 2475 Glendower Place, Dr. Harold Perelson, bludgeoned his wife Lillian Perelson with a ball-peen hammer and left her to asphyxiate on her own blood while their 3 children slept. Harold then attempted to bludgeon their eldest daughter, 18-year-old Judy, who escaped. Dr. Harold Perelson took his own life by consuming 2 doses of Nembutal and 31 small pills believed to be a powerful tranquilizer. It is still unknown why and what Perelson's motive was behind the murder-suicide. Paranormal investigators have captured EVPs of disembodied screams and other voices asking for help. Neighbors have reported seeing people reside within the home during its vacant years, where it was quarantined off from the public. The Los Feliz murder mansion was the inspiration for the American Horror Story first season, which focused on the murder house. Now, here's the thing, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Now, working behind the scenes on Ghost Adventures for a few seasons, I was tasked with trying to acquire the Los Feliz murder mansion, and I reached out through every venue I could. Now, it was never abandoned. As a matter of fact, it had belonged to a family since 1959. But the family that lived there for a number of years, the house had changed to the son, and the son still owned it, but he used it. And I got to meet him, Rudy, and got to meet him in person. I happened to locate him, and as I was driving by his other home, he was unloading groceries. He was kind enough to stand there and talk with a friend of ours and me for about a half an hour and answer any questions we had. And I asked, would he be willing to allow people to film there? He always said, maybe after I die, I just don't see a need for it, and it's so full of my stuff. And I asked him about the story, and he said, well, yes, it was definitely a murder-suicide that took place there. And he said, but the fact that there were Christmas decor up and people said that this all happened at the holidays, he said the family was Jewish, so they wouldn't have had Christmas decor up. He said that the Christmas stuff is his. He just stores it in that house. So basically, he said he owned, I think, like 5 to 7 houses across the world. And this house was basically a storage unit for him. A $3.5 million storage unit, Tim.
Wow.
Yeah, right? So he at that time was not interested in it, but said that the whole time they lived there, they never had any paranormal experiences, and that it's quite a bother because people would break into his house. He had to put in video cameras, had to do all kinds of stuff because people were breaking in. There's a lot of viral videos on YouTube of people that had broken in and would skulk around, and they say it was abandoned. It was never abandoned. He just didn't live there. He used it for storage only. But he claimed there was never any activity. and cleared up a lot of that. As a matter of fact, there's a documentary being made on the Los Feliz murder mansion. And since I was the last person to talk to Rudy before his death, they interviewed me, I think it was about 2 years ago, for that documentary. And as soon as it comes out, I'll let people know about it. But yeah, kind of an interesting little twist. But $3.5 million.
Jeez.
All right, where are we off to next, sir?
Well, we go to a train accident, actually, that happened to a teen, actually, while exploring the Poplick Monster site. For the second time in the last 3 years, tragedy has struck a Kentucky site said to be the home of a mysterious creature known as the Poplick Monster. According to a local media report, a pair of teenage girls were hit by a train on Sunday night while they were exploring a dangerous trestle in the city of Louisville. I say Louisville, by the way, not Louisville, because we've had this talk before, where legend has it a proverbial goat man resides. One of the teens perished in the tragic accident, and the other was left with a serious injury. The incident comes on the heels of an eerily similar case from 2016 in which a young woman was killed while visiting the Poplick Trestle in search of the monster. In this particular instance, however, it is uncertain if the urban legend was specifically what drew the two teens to the site over the weekend. An individual claiming to be related to one of the girls took to Twitter on Monday and insisted that the teens' misadventure had nothing to do with the goat man and that they were simply thrill-seeking when they ventured out onto the trestle. While that very well may be the case, it seems certain that the accident will become connected to the creature in the minds of many and unfortunately inspire others to tempt fate on the trestle. To that end, area residents express concern over just such a scenario unfolding, particularly when it comes to people who have heard the story of the Poplick Monster but are unaware of the perilous nature of the location in which it allegedly resides. One member of the community mused that the people that are from out here know better than to try and cross a trestle because of the tragedies which have taken place there. To those who may wish to throw caution to the wind, she stressed that it's not worth it to yourself and not worth it to your friends and family.
Yeah, that's a sad tragedy. You hate to hear that stuff happening.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, here's my final story. But before I mention that, let me remind you that you can cruise with Chris Jericho, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Dave Schrader, Tim Dennis, and more aboard the Chris Jericho Cruise 2 that'll be taking place January 20th through the 24th, 2020 from Miami to Nassau, Bahamas. Last year was awesome. What a great time. We all enjoyed it. I know you'll love it and enjoy it as well. You can get information and tickets by going to darknessevents.com and clicking on the Chris Jericho banner. You'll find all the information there, or just go to chrisjerichocruise.com. chrisjerichocruise.com. Don't miss out. There is a plethora of entertainers, musicians, comedians, pro wrestlers that are all going to be aboard the ship. Live wrestling, live concerts, live comedy shows, plus ghost stories with Dave and Tim and more paranormal fun. We are the paranormalists for the cruise, and we'd love to interact with you all and see you there. So make sure that you go get your tickets and come on out and have some fun with us. Tim, a Seattle man, says he's haunted by his paranormal past in Portsmouth. In a small Seattle apartment, Cleveland Tony Harmon's past has finally caught up with him. Now he's ready to tell his story. 56 years ago, Harmon says he was unknowingly swept up in a poltergeist phenomena. A boy living in a Portsmouth house that became the center of some inexplicable events straight out of a horror movie. Flying books, levitating mattresses, cups and saucers, sailing by to crash and shatter. And yes, you can discount it all, as stories about the paranormal often are. But the thing is, there were some credible witnesses and media accounts over several days in September of 1962 in Portsmouth. What happened to Harmon and his family was covered by the Virginia Pilot, the Associated Press, and other publications. A Pilot reporter who covered the events declared he was reassessing his disbelief in the supernatural. Harmon, who is now 70, and he's had a rough and tumble life that brought him some 2 decades ago to the Pacific Northwest. He was homeless for a time before finding a place at a low-income housing facility for seniors in Seattle. What finally has Harmon talking about his past is a woman named Mary Brett, 73, of Dade City, Florida. She also grew up in Portsmouth and was a teen when the inexplicable events took place in her hometown. Now retired from a job as a healthcare recruiter for hospitals, Tim. The story vanished for a second. Brett decided to dig into the events from her childhood and track down Harmon. I had so many questions, she says. It became a passion that took up the last 4 years. She found relatives of Harmon, looked up his school records, looked up the newspaper stories on microfiche, ads in newspapers, researched in libraries, and even paid for a background search. Brett finally got lucky when she posted on a Facebook page about Portsmouth history asking if anybody knew of Harmon's whereabouts. Someone on Facebook page told her Harmon himself was on Facebook. On July 2017, Harmon posted on his Facebook page, "I will always carry around with me until the day I die, the true story." Brett and Harmon began talking by phone and mailing to each other. She thinks his story should be told beyond his 12 Facebook friends. And so here we are, Tim, telling the story. In September of 1962, when he was 13, Harmon was living with his great-great-grandparents, Annie and Charlie Daughtery, in a single-story rental home. He remembers his first incident. "I was coming home from school. Some guys were chasing me, probably because I had girls hanging around me all the time," said Harmon. "I ran up the stairs of the porch. The screen door was open, and I dropped my bag of books on the floor. I could smell Grandma cooking in the back, fresh apple pie. Then the books flew over the top of my head. My grandma said, 'What are you doing throwing books all over?' I said, 'I didn't throw them.' She thought I was fibbing and sat me in the corner. Then, the next afternoon, I was sitting on the floor in the living room, and my grandfather and grandma had their pipes. They both smoked those corncob pipes. They had the tobacco can sitting up in the mantle to keep me from getting after it. I was sitting there wondering where I can get tobacco when the can flipped over, rolled on the floor. My grandma was stunned. There was no explanation. I didn't know what I had done. It excited me, and it made my heart pound. The events continued and became talked about in the neighborhood. Helen Davis, age 91, lived across the street from the Daughteries. She still lives in Portsmouth. She and another neighbor were walking home from the church. "Something needs to be done," Davis, who was interviewed by the Seattle Times, remembers the neighbor telling her. "Things are being thrown out into the street. We walked over. The grandfather was so glad we came over. He had not slept in 2 nights. Davis says she saw salt and pepper shakers and some glass jumped up and dropped on the floor. The rocking chair in one of the rooms started rocking while we were just standing there. Joseph V. Phillips was the Virginian pilot reporter who went to check out the reports. His front page article the next day began, "I didn't believe in ghosts until Saturday. I went to a house at 949 Florida Avenue and got goosepimples while dodging flying household objects that crashed to bits on the floor. I didn't believe this nonsense until Saturday. Now I'm not so sure. I saw weird things happen, but I don't know what caused them." Phillips has died, but the photographer on the story, William Aberjule, 83 of Virginia Beach, also clearly remembers that day. "Basically, we were inside the house, walking down the hall, and stuff hit the wall and broke. A dish and a glass," he recently told the Times. He and Phillips looked into the room where stuff was coming from. There wasn't anybody in there. There was one window, and it was closed, Aberjule remembers. "We couldn't find any explanation." The story that Sunday further spread the publicity, and on that day, Portsmouth police cordoned off the street. Police estimated that as many as 10,000 people went to Florida Avenue Sunday to take a look at the Daughtery house. In the afternoon, cars were arriving in the suburb at a rate of 600 an hour, the Virginian pilot reported. Harmon and his great-great-grandparents moved in with relatives. They never returned to the rental home. Harmon still believes he was responsible for the flying objects, although he doesn't understand how or why. After the events of that September, while staying with relatives, Harmon says he decided to move a pencil that was on a table. "I just put it right there at the edge," he says. He says about these powers he had, "I stopped it. I knew right then and there what I was doing. It had to happen no more." Harmon was interviewed by William G. Roll, a well-known parapsychologist with Duke University's parapsychology labs. Roll spent a few days in his investigation and concluded the only thing that can be said with assurance is that there is nothing in this house itself to cause the phenomena, the newspaper reported. The things only happened when the house was occupied. Roll believed that a poltergeist, literally translated from a German as a knocking spirit, was caused by psychokinesis, an unproven psychic ability that allows individuals to move objects by their mind. Harmon remembers that sometime later, "I remember sitting at a table and across with 3 guys wearing suits. I was looking at cards, ink cards with drawings, and asking, 'What do these look like?' They were waving something in my face like a gold chain back and forth. Brett believes that Harmon was being tested for causing the poltergeist activity. She says that Harmon exhibited one explanation for a poltergeist, that of an adolescent who had experienced profound trauma. Although there is no corroboration other than Harmon's statements, he tells of being beaten and sexually abused by his stepdad, which is why his mother took him to stay with his great-great-grandparents. He tells of the stepdad beating his mom. The background and newspaper clips from the Virginia pilot were forwarded by the Times to Neil Dagnall, a reader at Manchester Metropolitan University in England, the equivalent of the associate professor whose expertise is in the psychology of paranormal beliefs. Explanation for poltergeists range from a kind of mass hallucination to hoaxes, he says, and then there are a few cases that get looked at, and there's no explanation, Dagnall says. He says the poltergeist report in Portsmouth may be just such another case. After the events of 1962, Harmon's life was one troubled step after another. Juvenile correctional facility, foster care, a stint in prison for forgery, and use of stolen credit cards. Several moves around the West Coast before ending up addicted to crack and living in a homeless camp in Woodinville. In March 2009, Harmon was charged with a felony domestic violence and spent 8 months in jail. Harmon says he's been clean and sober for 7 years now. What to make of his story? He says, I did everything that was done in that house. I didn't know about poltergeist at the time. I believe my life was destined to do that stuff. What a crazy story, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Very cool that it's coming out. All right, Tim, what's your final story for us?
Our final story has to do with Doris Day, Dave, and why she will have no funeral, no memorial, and no marker. It turns out that she didn't like death. I don't think any of us really do like death,
Nope.
Dave, to be honest with you. Doris Day won't be having a funeral after she died at the age of 97. The legendary Hollywood star who died on Monday morning, a couple Monday mornings ago, made her wishes clear in her will. Her manager and close friend, Bob Bashara, tells People magazine, no funeral, no memorial, and no grave marker. In addition to saying Day didn't like to talk about a prospective funeral or memorial, Bashara explains she didn't like death and she couldn't be with her animals if they had to be put down. She had difficulty accepting death. I'd say we need to provide for her dogs after she died, and she'd say, I don't want to think about it. And she'd say, well, you just take care of them, recalls Bashara. She had several when her will was written, and she wanted to be sure they were taken care of. She didn't like to talk about the dogs dying. An avid animal lover and animal welfare advocate, Day was brought up Catholic and was a practicing Christian Scientist after marrying producer Martin Melcher. Day drifted away from organized religion after Melcher died in 1968, Bashara says, but remained a spiritual person. She believed in God and she thought her voice was God-given, he says. She would say, God gave me a voice and I just used it. Bashara says he remains unsure as to why Day was reticent about having a funeral, but explains, I think it was because she was a very shy person. She never let her celebrity affect her and who she was, and she was always the little girl from Cincinnati who was extraordinarily talented and went out in the world and did what she loved to do despite herself, he says. She was guileless, and I had discussions with her about how popular she was, and she would say, I don't understand it, about why she was so loved. She knew her fans loved her from all her letters, and that meant a lot to her, he adds. Bashara says Day's estate will be donated to charity per her will. The ultimate thing for it is to keep the foundation going, he says of her Doris Day Animal Foundation, which she created in 1978. Friends and fans wishing to remember Doris Day are encouraged to visit DorisDayAnimalFoundation.org.
With that, let's take a break. We'll come back, and it's time for ParaShare, your time to shine, world. We'll hear your stories next on Beyond the Darkness. If you like our show, you're going to love the GG Podcast with Rick Fox, Jace Hall, and Todd Roy on Podcast One. Log on to see the world behind the esports you love and find out what good game really means from a trio who's taken the business by storm, including the 3X NBA champion behind Team Echo Fox. Download new episodes of the GG Podcast every week on Apple Podcasts and Podcast One.
Beyond the darkness.
All right, we're back. This is the part of the show where we share your stories, ParaShare. And you know what? There's another way to do it. If you'd like to call our Voices from Beyond voicemail, it's 651-300-4977. 651-300-4977. You can call in and be a part of the show. Just leave your story, your account of what happened. Tim will plug it into an upcoming episode. You have 3 minutes to tell your story. If it goes over that 3-minute period, just call back and pick up where you left off, and we will put those together neatly into one little audio package that we'll play on an upcoming episode. So call us now, 651-300-4977. Share your story to be shared on an upcoming episode. Here's some of the emails. If you want to send them in as an email, you can do that as well to dave@darknessradio.com. Hi, guys. I'm not sure what kind of story this is. Maybe paranormal, maybe an anomalous creature. My husband and I had to go to work early this day. We have worked together in the same small shop for over 20 years. It's located on an old World War II Air Force base, so some employees say that it's haunted and that they hear things. It was 5 a.m. I used the woman's restroom and washed my hands. The water in the sink would not drain. I had half a mind to say, screw this, I don't have time. I share this bathroom with one other woman, and I knew she wouldn't fix it. It was up to me. I looked down the drain, and in the dim of the light of an old building at 5 a.m., what I thought I saw was a silver, round disc from the top of a juice bottle. My solution was to get a thin knife, stick it down the edge of the drain. Suddenly, a gray, gelatinous creature shot straight up from the drain. It scared the bejesus out of me, yet horrified me at the same time. I would never hurt an animal, and I hope the knife did not hurt it. I think it was a giant frog. I have no idea how or why it was in that drain, but it was. Anyway, I screamed like a baby, dropped the knife and ran. My hubby heard and came running. I refused to go back in that room. He checked it out and found nothing. He thinks I'm just batshit crazy. He never found this creature from the depths of Stephen King's mind. I used the men's room for the next 2 days because it freaked me out that bad. No one has ever seen it. The only explanation I have was that an air vent with no cover in that bathroom. He's in the air conditioning ducts somehow. Yeah, there's that, but probably not. You stabbed to death a poor little alien creature just looking for love. Shame on you. Shame on you. No?
Oh, it could be, yeah.
Dear Dave and Tim. Hey there, guys. I'm a huge fan, though I've only been listening for a short time. I discovered Beyond the Darkness through the episode of the Chad Prather show that Dave was on. I absolutely loved that interview and immediately began devouring your podcast quite hungrily. Anyway, the reason I'm sending you this email is that at the time that this happened, I was in a very bad spot in my life. I had had a terrible run of luck. My mother had cancer, had some costly legal trouble. Soon after, I was thrown from a horse and shattered my elbow and had to have it reconstructed. I was off work and not making money, not to mention that it was a job I had been in for years with no real opportunity for advancement, not to mention my very unlucky love life. Anyway, I was struggling with depression and was drinking too much and was on my way to suicide. As I sat drinking myself to sleep one night, I had Beyond the Darkness blaring on my surround sound. I was trying to think of a reason not to do something foolish. And Dave, you began to speak about depression and suicide. As I listened to you, I began to cry. All I can say is those words may have saved me. It took me a while to get out of the bottle completely, but every time in my depression soared and I started drinking, those words were stuck in my head. Recently, things have gotten better. I've met the woman of my dreams, found better employment, and haven't had a drink in quite a while. I'm in fact going to be a father. We go in for the first ultrasound this week. I honestly don't think any of this would be happening if I hadn't found Beyond the Darkness. Sorry, I got a lump in my throat there. Thanks, Dave and Tim, not only for the quality programming, but for the words of wisdom and encouragement that you put out into the world. I know for a fact it is a necessity, and some folks need to hear it. Thanks again, guys. Also, thanks to Dave, I can now only refer to coitus as the smooth cha-cha. Saving lives and recreating new words to use for sexual intercourse, Tim. I laugh like a crazy man every time. Anyway, thanks again, guys. Much love to both of you. Your grateful fan, Daniel. P.S. Sorry for any grammatical, punctual, or structural errors. I know they drive you crazy. You did great, Daniel. Thank you so much. And really, it does mean a lot to both of us to hear those kind of comments. So thank you. That one took me by surprise.
And congratulations, Daniel.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Great, man, that you're going to have a baby. Your life is turning around. See, sometimes when we think there's no way our life can get better and we give into that darkness, that's when the things start to turn around. You literally gotta hit that bottom sometimes so that you can start to push your way back up. And I'm glad that you found your way back into the light. Stay strong, brother. Stay away from the bottle. And just remember that now your life has a whole new meaning. And even when things seem to go bad, just remember it's a temporary storm. And you weather it out and love harder than you've ever loved, laugh harder than you've ever laughed, and just enjoy the life that you're given. And enjoyed the smooth cha-cha, Tim.
Oh, God, yeah.
Hi, Dave and Tim. Hope all is well. I've shared some stories with you guys before regarding what I've believed to be my son and mother. However, this one is one of my Mrs. Lisa's experiences. Words is hard, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
I can usually get sick and not look like I'm sick. I was in the hospital for a CMV, cytomegalovirus. It's something I got after having a transplant. Turns out that the donor kidney gave to me. It can be life-threatening for people who have a low immune system. So when I got the virus, I was very sick, pale, very tired and sleepy, and shouldn't have been able to walk up a flight of stairs. It was urgent for me to go upstairs, one level, to get blood tests done and go to my room that was ready for me. It was a transplant private room. The elevator at the time was slow. The nurses could see that I was about to fall asleep or something, so they said, "We can try the stairs, but I don't think you'll make it." I said, "Let's go." Not really caring, and just walked upstairs, step by step. I was able to go up those stairs. I was short of breath, and by the time I got up to the top, it turns out with my level of virus or something, I shouldn't have been able to walk around, let alone be walking upstairs. It was not possible for anyone. At the time, the doctors didn't know what was my problem until they did some tests. I was very weak and lethargic and stayed in the hospital for 3 weeks in an isolated private room. So one day, it might have been in the second week, I was sitting on the edge of my bed and brushing my hair and looking at the mirror while doing it. As I'm brushing my hair, I see a person behind me in the mirror. I was calm but curious, and I'm like, that's Papa, my mom's dad. He was standing there in his pajamas, the ones that he used to wear when he was alive. Blue pajamas with red stripes, and they were winter pajamas with his blue slippers as well. He was just standing there. I remember thinking, please stay there when I turned around, because generally in the movies, you look around and no one's there. So I was thinking, please stay there, and over my head. But I stared at the mirror for a long while before I turned around. I wanted to treasure this moment. I was calm and relaxed. I didn't want it to end the moment I turned around. Must have taken me 3 to 4 minutes before I turned around, but it felt longer. Once I did turn around, he was still standing there. I was surprised and quietly said thank you in my mind. Again, I just stared at him. I don't know how long, even when I looked down at my angel, I then looked back up and he was still there. No words are spoken. I think I was just really surprised and just really calm. I wasn't scared. I believed in angels and spirits, so it didn't really bother me. I was surprised more than anything else, so I wanted to test my theory again and wanted to look back into the mirror to see if he was there. So I turned around again, and he was still there, just standing there, smiling. I looked back around behind me, and he was still there. I couldn't believe it. I turned back around to look in the mirror, and he was still there. I smiled at him, and then the door opened to my left in my room, and it was one of the nurses to check up on me. I looked at her, then looked back at the mirror, and Papa was gone. I don't know how long it was there, but there was plenty of times and chances that he couldn't have been there, but was there every time I looked around. At that point, I knew I was going to be okay. I know, and I knew I was a strong person. I immediately decided to write this experience down so I could remember it and tell my mom the next day. The next day, Mom came and visited me, and I said, I have something to tell you. I told her what happened. I think it was a special moment, and she loved that he had come and was watching over me. I'm a 34-year-old woman who have always been interested in the paranormal, psychics, empaths, etc. I've always been drawn to being a spiritual person, and I've always been told that I'm an empath or something special. From researching articles and books and the internet, I've always been fascinated with crystals, spiritual guidance, and reading oracle cards. I believe I'm a person who has special gifts and need to look within myself to learn more about them. and all things spiritual. I've had many things happen to me spiritually that I believe and have had connections with people from this world and in the spirit world. Thanks for reading this experience. We hope all is well with the new house, Tim's health, and Dave's cough. Thank you. We appreciate that. Yeah, I got over my cough. How is your health doing? Everybody keeps asking me about it, and I told them, I guess you're relatively bouncing back. What's going on with your health, Tim?
Actually, let me clarify a couple of things real quick. The health issue was actually a reaction to an arthritis medication that I had. So that was over and done with. And actually, I felt like I was having a stroke and a heart attack at the same time. It was a really bad reaction, but that's fine and dandy.
A stroke attack?
A stroke attack, yes. And actually, I got cleared recently to walk up to a mile in this new boot. So the foot is actually doing really good. So I'm actually doing very, very well. Yeah.
All right. We've got a couple more stories to share. Dave, my experience. Ooh, just Dave there, Tim.
That's okay.
Started off with Dave.
No, it's fine.
Oh, I'm going to forgive this one because it was sent to Dave at midnightinthedesert.com.
Yeah.
So it ended up in this email block. But anyway, Dave, my experiences started at 14 years of age, and now I'm retired. My best friend and I saw a saucer-shaped UFO that looked like the top that the kids would play with back in my time as a youngster. It had portals, windows circled around the top and near the top of the craft. We stood there in awe and pinched each other. There was some missing time because my mom was really mad when I came home so late. 10:30 p.m. To past midnight. I've seen four other UFOs since then, and the last one was a large triangle craft in 2011. Saw all the components of its underside only up about 70 feet as it passed over me. My mom and two brothers saw this one also just down the street. I've been abducted at least 4 times, saw 2 ETs while wide awake and several in vivid regressed dreams. Spent a day with a Japanese young lady in Sedona, Arizona that was really strange. What made it real was that she visited me in Illinois while my cousin and I were sitting on my front porch. She had 2 young Japanese guys with her. She stood down the road while the 2 guys came up to us on the porch. We were dumbfounded and did not speak. This was in March of 2011. Too much to say on a text with all these details, but I feel I needed to get this out. Thank you very much for sharing it, and that comes from Dave. Well, thank you, Dave. Hey, Dave and Tim.
Hey.
Hey, Rhonda. Here's a real-life story for your consideration for your radio program. My dad died back in 1984 from cancer. I was grief-stricken. He died the day after Christmas and was buried in January. I was still sad on and off until spring. When one lovely spring day I was in the kitchen doing the dishes, I, for some reason or another, looked up to see my dad coming up the stairs to the sidewalk. My mouth dropped open. I walked to the front door and was looking through the screen door and said, "Dad, you're dead," and dropped the fork I was holding. With the ching, it hit the floor. I looked down and back up to Dad, but he wasn't there. I opened the screen door to not see Dad. I burst into tears and started to grieve all over again. Dave, I've always heard you wanted a visit from your ma. Just a cautionary episode from my life to you and others who wish a visit, and that comes from Rhonda. Well, thank you, Rhonda. And yes, I would like a visit, but you got to see him. That's pretty profound and amazing. All right. This one doesn't even come to you or me, Tim, just launches into a story. I'm not claiming to be hindered by anything at all at this moment, but I do feel inclined to share with you. I feel from time to time, all the time, that I'm in the presence of other things, maybe even sharing my human experience with other things and communicating with them simply because my mind is open to it. I would love to be a part of any conversation involving this topic because I'm a believer and a skeptic. I really need more knowledge and insights from people brave enough to share to me. These are dark secrets which alienates me and what makes me feel detached from the world. I feel as if I am, in fact, a creature at times. My name is Victoria. I'm not going to give her full name. I'm 24 years old. I've always had an interesting and close relationship with the spiritual realms. Reality checked me when my stepfather passed away suddenly in 2012. I had my first materialized encounter with a ghost. He was diagnosed with leukemia and passed away 2 weeks after diagnosis at the age of 39, only days after his birthday in November. He died officially on Thanksgiving that year. His name was Christopher, and I don't think he really understood that he died. His spirit patrolled the house every morning like he did in life. Chris would check on my sisters and I around 4:30 a.m. every morning as part of his routine, a man of habit and procedure. He was very organized and intelligent. He was an engineer at Lam Research in Fremont, California. He had a certain understanding for the way electricity worked and how to use the brain. I could go on, but the point is he was very smart and very much alive before he died. Anyway, every morning for weeks after he died, I would wake up around the same time, 4:30, and find myself looking straight at the door, wide-eyed, but didn't see anything. Only sensed it, falling back asleep as the heater kicked on. This happened for days, and then I saw him. I opened my eyes, and it was at that very moment a tall, broad-shouldered, square-headed figure, and his hand peeked out from the door, the top corner of my door, right at me. I wasn't scared. I knew exactly who it was, despite having no face. I even saw it leave the doorway. It stayed for a split second, long enough for me to know and have a thought like I knew it. This wasn't the first or the last experience I had with the spirit. It was the first time I saw it face to face, and I have more to tell. I always loved the whimsical and mysterious. I wasn't worried until seeing him. I realized at that point that I was probably didn't know shit like I thought I did. It freaked me out so much I stopped watching Ghost Adventures and anything like it for several years, barely picking it back up that they toured Astoria Underground, and only because the TV happened to be on the Travel Channel already, and I forgot how funny Zach was, so I left it on. I always felt a bit plagued by energies. Seeing my stepdad's ghost was super traumatic, even though fascinating. So I think the show gave me PTSD or something. Anyway, I still have tons of credit to the spirit world, but I didn't actively involve myself like I did before. It didn't prevent things from happening or stop me from feeling it, though. I always had my tarot cards, and I didn't speak directly unless absolutely called for. Not every day like it was. Ghost Adventures is where I think I learned the name of a demon I encountered during one of my out-of-body experiences that I had while I was pregnant. In one episode, they'd met a man who had studied and conjured this particular demon that I believed to be the same one I saw. Ouija had connected it to my experience. Before I saw that episode, I thought I was just having crazy bad dreams, but I'm learning more, or I'm leaning more towards scary demon. I saw this thing face to face, and it made me call it Mama before it smiled and released me. Pregnancy is weird, though. When I got pregnant with my daughter, fearing I might provoke and unintentionally attach a negative spirit to her, I backed out of my practices of mysticism altogether and think it brought consequences. I think I made this powerful entity mad, like I was betraying her. I read a couple of Bible verses, which was not common for me to do, and that's what seems to provoke her. Like the message I got, she had been guiding me, and now I was leaving her? I don't know if that even makes sense. This was in 2015. To be honest, I don't think stepping back prevented my daughter from feeling negative influences at all, although she could just simply be a 3-year-old. So these days, I'm allowing energies to flow through me once again and into my mysticism because I feel drawn to it and like the spirits that have been waiting for me. Please email me back if you're interested in hearing more. These experiences made me realize and respect certain things about the fabric of the realm, and I absolutely looking for answers. And if I can answer questions, others have too. Thank you very much, and that comes from Victoria. Well, Victoria, we're always happy to hear other stories. Feel free to email them in. Here's our final story for today, Tim.
All right.
Thanks for the prompt reply, because he'd asked if I was interested in hearing his stories. I have several amazing stories of events that have happened to me, but if you'd be so kind as to share your opinion on what I encountered, I'd be most grateful. I'm an adept at meditation, and one occasion, laid down after 10 minutes into my routine, the blackness of my closed eyelids began showing me depth, until eventually I felt like I was in space. I could feel myself moving or floating in the dark coolness of space. In the far distance, I could perceive small white lights like stars in the vast distance. Eventually, after approximately 20 to 25 minutes, I began seeing an object very far away from me, but moving toward me at a slow pace. After some time, I could make out the shape of a bodiless head floating toward me at about 300 feet. I could perceive a face. It was a bald, white-collared head with a mustache and goatee. At first appearance, it was very fascinating to me until its eyebrows slanted downward over its eyes, and it opened its mouth and let out an angered and very loud yell. After a second of its enraged, anger-filled roar, it sped up its journey towards me, almost at like light speed. It collided with me, yelling in a rage as it rammed into me. At that very moment, I rose up in bed, completely awake, sweaty, clammy and shaking. I had the worst splitting headache. I looked around the bedroom, searching around me to be certain I hadn't brought it back with me. The strangest thing was, I could feel an electricity to the air. And when I opened the fridge to get a drink of orange juice, all of my dairy products in the fridge had soured or curdled. I've never experienced that entity again in my meditation, but I can't help but wonder what that entity was exactly. It was so real and frightening. Dave, I need your professional opinion. What do you think I had an encounter with? I have some ideas, but I'm interested to hear your opinion. Thanks for listening and responding. Excited to hear from you soon. Sincerely, Jeff. You know, Jeff, I'm not certain. It certainly sounds demonic in nature, but it could have been just a warning that whatever level of that meditation you were striking, you were not supposed to be there. I don't know for certain, and because it's not a practice that I'm skilled or adept at, I think I'd be remiss in giving you any kind of real information. My best bet is reach out to a metaphysical facility near you and ask them, people that are more proficient at meditation and astral projection, and you might get more of an answer. Well, that's it, Tim. We are out of stories this week. People can email more to me, dave@darknessradio.com, or give us a call on our Voices from Beyond voicemail, 651-300-4977. And before we leave, if you're looking for a little bit of fun this weekend, Godzilla King of Monsters is now officially out in theaters. Tim and I had a chance to see that movie earlier this week. And out of 5 stars, 1 means it sucks, 5's fantastic. I'd give this movie a solid 4 stars. It was a little slow going, but I enjoyed the action once it got started and loved seeing all of the monsters together on the big screen. Now that they've been able to step up CGI and the creativity behind it, I thought it was fantastic. The story was a little weaker than I would have liked it, and it was still missing something. That's why I can't give it 5 stars. But I would definitely go between 3.5 to 4 stars, leaning more towards 4. Tim, what are your thoughts?
Again, I went a little lower than you. I'm not going to lie. It's one of those things where, to me, it moved a little slow. I don't know. To me, it was missing something. And I think it was missing a little something more than even the previous movie. I went 3 out of 5 because it still is exciting. It jumps right in at the beginning of the movie, and the action hits hard and fast at the beginning of the movie, but then it gradually slows and we get a little bit more plot in the middle of the movie. And again, no spoilers because we don't want to spoil stuff for everybody, but it still is a good summer movie, and there's still plenty of action to it. But it's a lot better than a lot of other summer movies that are out there. So I still went 3 out of 5.
I feel like it is a blockbuster movie. It'll be a fun one and hopefully make a lot of money. So when Kong versus Godzilla comes out next year, it'll be all ready for it.
Yeah, and what's interesting is
I can't wait for it to really be out there so we can go back and have people that are really good at dissecting all the Easter eggs can point out, because there was so much going on, especially at the end during the kind of flips of the newspapers as they're telling you what happened after the story that unfolded. I'd like to be able to slow that down and get some more insights from that.
What's interesting too is I don't know how much I can say, but there's they do keep you. They do keep Kong in the universe, don't they? They do keep him in the realm of things and let you know that Kong is coming, which is great, you know.
Yep, they certainly do. We won't tell you how, but there are a few references to Kong and Skull Island, so keep an eye out for it. But go out, if you're looking for a fun movie, you can't beat it as a matinee. We did not see it in 3D, and I enjoyed it thoroughly not in 3D. I don't know that it would have brought me much more in 3D, but just bear that in mind when going out and spending your hard-earned cash on a movie. Well, that's it for this week. We'll be back again. Actually, that's it for today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Vince Wilson, our guest, as we look at the weird world history with Vince Wilson here on Beyond the Darkness.